the hills in Marin, and this voice came in and said, the house you're looking for is over there. And he went on the map and found this house and bought the property.
Wow.
He decided to create a community as a model of sustainable living. This is back in the late 1990s, so it's pretty early on. Not many people were doing this, especially in the Bay Area. So I was fortunate enough through my connections with people around Earth Dance and before that, that I was able to live there early on, and I helped found the community. And it became, I think there's about 12 people who lived there, and it was really hard to kind of get in and live there. But Solstice Grove became a hub for the creative alternative community of the Bay Area, roughly for those years, from the late 90s to most of the 2000s. We had some of the most epic parties ever at this house. Sometimes they go in for like 3 or 4 days, and just like, really clean vegan food, and like the best musicians, Tina Malia and Shim Shai, and Dead Can Dance. There, all these bands would play there, and it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really adventurous period of my life living there. So that's how Michaela and I knew each other. And so, I moved out in 2007, went to Hawaii, lived at the Resonance Project, all that stuff, living to Sim Harriman and all these other chapters. But then when I was called to come to Mount Shasta, that all happened. And I called him Michaela. And she's like, oh my God, I was just saying I want to live with someone like you yesterday. And I call up. So I come over to this house, and it was just perfect. I moved in. I've been here ever since. I'm trying to, it's hard for me to think of a synchronicity story because there's just so many of them.
Yeah.
The way my memory works, I have to kind of like really be reminded of something specific. But
Every day of my life.
right? Oh, totally. What I will say.
That is synchronicity. We're like, what happened?
What's that? Yeah.
But it's not a synchronicity.
Exactly.
Like, what just happened there?
Yeah. It's getting that way, isn't it? It's like a normal stream of incredibleness. I will say, Christopher, that in 2006, I was going to graduate school at the California Institute of Integral Studies, studying Carl Jung and the concept of synchronicity a lot. I was very, very interested in studying synchronicity itself and considering, like, what is it really? Like, what's really going on with synchronicity? I was thinking about it a lot. And I decided to buy the domain name synchronicity.net.
That's fine.
You can go there now and look at it. I got the domain. I still have it, and I had a project idea that it's always kind of been one of these side projects I've never really followed through with fully, but maybe it'll come around again. The general idea is that it could just be like this general community website where people can post their synchronicity stories, whatever you got. Write it out, upload some images maybe, give the date. So you give all this metadata, the date, where it happened, any kind of quality parameters. So the idea is would be gathering data around people's synchronicity stories. And then with the idea that you'd be gathering this data, and then sometime in the future you can go back and possibly, run computational analysis on various things and maybe see some emergent patterns, maybe with astrology or global coherence. I don't know.
I bought 6 domains 4 or 5 days before I got in a car accident in 2010. And I haven't done anything with them yet except pay for them. They've increased in value. I have, wow, I can't even think of the name right now. My brain is mush. I have sustainableprinciples.com. And the idea was I was looking for something, I was looking for sustainableliving.com, but it was already gone, and it suggested Sustainable Principles instead. I'm like, oh, that's actually even kind of better. And so I bought, .com, .net, .mobi, all 6 permutations of it, so that nobody could, write off, somebody screwing up the dot whatever at the end, .org.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times if you've got a really popular .com, somebody else will buy the .org and try and
Right.
make money off your concept. But yeah, right after I bought it, I had a bunch of big plans of what I was going to do. It was going to be like a, you know, big permaculture and sustainable, you know, living things going on there. I gotta get to it one of these days.
One of my best domain stories is about mythicsystems.com, which I still have right now. You can go to mythicsystems.com right now. But I bought a bunch of domain names in 2005. I was already buying domain names before that.
I think I bought them for like,
Mhm.
I want to say like the .com was, I think $3.99. All the others
Oh,
were
that's
like
good, yeah.
99 were like 99 cents.
Yeah.
The .com one is, every once in a while they say, don't you want to sell it? And they estimate what it'll go for. It's worth about 2,000 right now.
Oh, great. That's awesome. Yeah.
And the others are, you know, somewhere in the hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
But
So I bought mythicsystems.com in 2005. I just got back from India. I was in Oroville, India, and I got back and I was so inspired. I got so lit up when I was in India that trip, which is a great story in itself, Chris. But I spent like a week. I was at the computer. I just spent like a week just researching domain names and grabbing up a bunch of really good ones. Probably like dozens and dozens of them. And one of them was mythicsystems.com. And I remember I found, I was like, Mythic Systems, that sounds interesting. Like, that could be a good brand. I just kind of had this intuition about it. Like that, I could do something interesting with Mythic Systems. And so I bought it, and it was like $7 for a year, right? And I paid for $7, a lot of domains, including that one. And, you know, 3 years went by. So I paid like $21 for Mythic Systems for 3 years. And then in 2000, I think it was 2007 or 8, I think it's 2007, end of 2007. One day I get an email from this company that they're like, they do like negotiations between sellers and buyers of domain names. They go, we have a client that really wants your domain name. Would you like to sell it? How would you like to sell it for? I'm like, yeah, I'll sell it. How about $2,000? And they email me back. They're like, yeah, okay, we'll buy it for $2,000. And so I email them back and I go, well, how about $5,000? And they're like, okay, we'll buy it for $5,000. I'm like, cool, all right. So I sell it for $5,000, and like a week goes by, I get the money, they get the domain name, and then, you know, within a month, I think the $5,000 had just evaporated, right? Like, I don't know what I spent. I spent on like kombucha and Burning Man costumes or something. I don't know, but it just kind of disappeared. And then I was like, oh man, I just sold like one of my best domain names. I think I kind of really wanted that domain name for myself. I had some intuition, like that had a lot of meaning. Like there's something about that. I think that's my brand name. I just sold it for $5,000 and now the money's gone. So I was kind of upset about it. And it kind of really bothered me for years. For a couple of years, I was like, sometimes I was losing sleep over it. And one night I got up, because I didn't know who the client was that bought it. And one night I got up, I couldn't sleep, and I just started researching, and I dug and dug and dug online. And I found out that it was like I found this newspaper article, like from the East Coast online, that was about a company called Mythic Systems that was a multi-million-dollar startup on the East Coast. It was doing like some video innovation. It had like hundreds of employees and like all this marketing. Like, oh my God. I sold them their entire brand for $5,000. I could have asked at least $50,000, right?
Really?
Oh my God, I was so upset. I just couldn't believe it. I was actually kind of devastated. Like my ego was devastated at this time. This was like around 2009 or something, right? And I was living in Hawaii at that time, and I was feeling devastated by this
You have no idea. You want to talk about the worst freaking decision of my life? Okay, guys, quick.
Okay, let me finish this because it gets better. So that was the low point in the story. So I was like devastated, right? That this multi-million-dollar company, and now I was imagining like in 10 years, I'm going to see like TV commercials with Mythic Systems and like billboards with Mythic Systems everywhere, reminding me every day that I sold them their brand for $5K, my brand that I want. And so it's just like I was just tortured by this idea. And so finally, I went to GoDaddy where I manage all my domain names, and I discovered that they have a service where you can put in an order for $10 that will automatically put you in line, that if a domain name ever becomes available, it's a mechanism, it'll automatically get it for you. But you don't know, someone else might be in line ahead of you. So it's a little bit of a gamble, but it's just $10. And I'd also read in this newspaper that the companies seemed like they might be folding, like they weren't fully stable. It's like, okay, I'm gonna put in this thing and like maybe I'll get it. And then a year later, I get an automated email from GoDaddy saying, congratulations, mythicsystems.com is yours. So I had, the stories, I bought this domain name, I paid $21 for it, sold it for $5,000, lost it, and then got it back for $10. And now it's my brand, mythicsystems.com, which I'm doing all this, Mythos and the Mythic Path program and all these projects I'm doing under that brand.
Yeah, how much did you get it back for?
$10.
Oh, the whole thing. Jeez.
Yeah, because they folded, and whoever was their tech person probably got fired or laid off, and so they just like let it, no one knew to renew it, and so it went out of subscription, and then it just automatically became mine because I put in the $10 order. Yay! So that's a good Mythic story, isn't it? About the domain
awesome.
name mythicsystems.com. So now I'm never going to let that one go.
So when in 2021 is the book coming out?
The book?
Yeah.
Oh,
It says coming in
which one?
2021.
The Evolutionary Experience Design?
Yep.
I don't know exactly when. That's just my estimate. I'm probably going to do a shorter version of that as soon as possible. In fact, I was even thinking of doing a really short version for one of these webcasts of speaking about, kind of laying out the principles behind designing for collective intelligence, because there is kind of a science to it. Like there's people that's written books on this, and so I've been kind of compile all that into kind of like maybe like a cliff notes of principles for designing for collective intelligence and individual transformation and collective evolution. But in the heart of that really is collective intelligence, I think.
I like it. Collective consciousness. There's an app for that.
That's Adam Curry's one. That's a blog post about Adam Curry's project, which I posted just after he had announced he was doing it. But it's not happening. I think what he described, Dana, too, he said that on that call, Adam Curry said that both he was working on another project, so he sounded a little bit distracted. Plus he said it was actually really hard. Like he had a tech team and programmers and all that. It was funded, but I think there's often much more to these projects, technically speaking. It sounded like there were some hard problems they were dealing with. Who knows?
What was the project?
Well, it was Adam Curry was doing the next iteration of the Global Consciousness Project. I think he has a degree from MIT, so he's a tech guy, but orientated in this consciousness research, and he launched a whole Kickstarter project around. What's the name of it? Can you read it off the blog post, Marco? I can't remember the name of the project.
Global Consciousness Project.
Yeah. So Adam Curry
Right, I was
was
just
going to
wondering
create like a
what
mobile
aspect-
app. What's that?
Oh, wait, no, that's not it. The project I've been aware of, the global, which immership here, some of the
Maybe he hadn't named it yet. I forget. They don't have the name.
yeah. It says
Right.
I've been aware of the Global Consciousness Project. Peer Lab, so.
Was it to make some kind of consciousness tracker or something?
Well, yeah, it was going to elevate the Global Consciousness Project to, like, you know, its optimal state that we can imagine it would be, where I was describing out earlier, where it was going to be an iPhone app,
Mhm.
so that people could download the app for free. The app itself would have a random number generator on, right? So it wouldn't have to be a hardware random generator; it'd be just in software generating random numbers. People can carry it with them on their phone, and so then they're measuring, you know, the coherency field in their locality, and then they have an app where they can see what's happening around them locally or globally, and they're also feeding data back to a network that's coordinating all this. So it's just a way of really scaling out that whole concept, but using an iPhone app. It's perfect sense.
Yeah, he had an Indiegogo going, but it's closed.
Yeah, I contributed to that.
Yeah, 17,000 of 100,000.
That was, I think, 2014. I think that was when it kicked off.
Yeah, I
And-
can't tell from this page, but where was I? Oh, I guess maybe go that way. Well, yeah, 2014.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just calling it consciousness app. And there's some videos that show, you know, that they had some, like, you know, design mock-ups and stuff of what it could look like. So, you know, it's inevitable that this is going to happen at some point.
Yeah, every success is preceded by how many failures? Any
Yeah.
number of failures.
Totally. I mean, I would like to do it. I can totally see it being done. I have for a long time. I think that the optimal way to do it, though, I think, is really to open source at least a big part of it. Open source the data, at least. Like, that's what I was talking with Adam about. It's like, well, you know, it's fine that you have a centralized project where the people are really designing it in the optimal way, but you want to open source as much of it as possible so that we can continue the innovation around it, because it's such a rich resource, particularly this data. This is global consciousness data. So it needs to be open so that many, many other people, developers, designers, innovators, can draw on that data and experiment with it, and, you know, perhaps find new patterns or consider new applications for it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He used to do synchronicity walks in London. I forget if they came to a website or whatever, or if he did an ad in the paper. I can't remember his name right now. But he had made himself like an 8-sided die and he had like note cards, and they would meet at some corner in London, and then after so much time, so many people, like 10, 20 people show up, and they all paid $2, and then somebody would roll the die, and it would say, you know, whatever number, and then they draw the card out, and it says, okay, follow the next person with an umbrella headed west. And they just all do whatever the card said, and they'd spend the whole evening, you know, doing that. Sometimes it would say, you know, get on the next bus, go in the next bar that comes up on your, you know, walk until, you know, in some direction until you see a bar on your right side, then enter and